Think about the last time you hugged your partner while your baby was looking at you. You probably didn't even think about it. It was just a quick moment, like 5 seconds, and you moved on with your day. But your baby was actually learning something huge. Something that's going to change who they become. And most parents have no clue it's even happening. Here's the thing, this actually matters. A lot. The first 3 years of your child's life. That's when their brain is basically on overdrive. More brain connections get made during these 3 years than at any other time in their whole life. Everything your baby hears, sees, feels, and watches is literally building their brain right now. So when your baby watches you grab your partner and hold them, it's not just a cute moment. Your baby is learning something. They're picking up information. And their brain is working hard to understand it. What they're learning isn't just what a hug looks like. They're learning what love actually feels like. What it feels like to be close to someone. What they might feel when they grow up. That's not just a nice thing to say. That's actual science. Most parents think babies are just there. They eat, they sleep, they cry. They don't get complicated grown-up feelings. They're too young to pick up on that stuff. It makes sense. It sounds right. But it's basically wrong. Back in 1977, a scientist named Andrew Meltzoff at the University of Washington found something that shocked everyone. He showed that babies just 2 or 3 weeks old could copy a face. Not by accident, they did it on purpose. They watched a grown-up's face and copied it. This was before anyone even called them mirror neurons. But Meltzoff had already proved something was going on in there. Scientists later figured out what was causing it. Deep in your brain there are cells that do something crazy. They fire when you do something and they fire when you watch someone else do that same thing. They found them first in monkeys. Then they found them in people too. These mirror cells don't care if you're doing it or watching it. To your brain, it's basically the same thing. So when your baby watches you pull your partner close, something happens that nobody thinks about. Your baby's brain doesn't just see the picture. It actually runs a simulation inside. Your baby's brain practices the warmth, the closeness, the feeling of safety. Their brain is basically rehearsing a feeling they haven't even had yet. And what gets practiced over and over? That gets wired in. Here's what you need to understand about babies. They're not just sitting there. They're not waiting to get old enough to learn. From the day they're born, they're doing one thing constantly. Watch the people I love and learn how the world works. Scientists have a word for part of this. They call it social referencing. It really kicks in around 9 to 12 months. By that age, your baby's figured something out. They can't figure out the world on their own yet, so they look at your face to tell them how to feel about things. When something new happens, they look at you. They read your expression. And they store that feeling. Is this safe? Is this okay? Should I be scared or feel good about this? Scientists have measured this really carefully. They actually watch baby brains while this happens and they can see it. 1-year-olds' brains light up more when they see things their parents reacted to. Their brain literally processes things differently based on what they've watched you react to. Now bring that back to the hug. When your baby watches you hold your partner, when they see happy faces and relaxed bodies and 2 people they love being close, their brain doesn't just see a hug. They do a quick check. They look at your face. They see warmth. They see happiness. They remember it. This is what being close looks like. This is what happens when people who love each other come together. That feeling gets saved. It becomes a pattern in their mind. But here's where it gets deeper. And this is the part nobody really talks about. Because it's not just about what your baby sees. It's about what it does inside their body. And that's where a chemical comes in. A chemical that's doing some of the most important work in your kid's whole development, and barely anybody mentions it when they talk about parenting. You've probably heard of oxytocin. People call it the love hormone, or the bonding hormone. That's a little simplified, but it's actually pointing at something real. Oxytocin is a chemical your body makes. It comes out when you touch skin to skin, when you're nursing a baby, when you're having warm moments with people. And it does something very specific. It calms down your stress and makes you want to connect with people. Science shows babies start making oxytocin before they're even born. When a parent and baby touch skin to skin, oxytocin goes up in both of them at the same time. And cortisol, the stress chemical, goes down. Let that sit for a second. Your baby's stress levels are literally being controlled by how warm the people around them are. Now here's the part about why it matters when your baby watches you show love. Scientists who study oxytocin found that when parents are cold and don't show feelings, babies have lower oxytocin. And changes happen in the amygdala. The amygdala is the part of your brain that handles fear. When the oxytocin system doesn't work right, the amygdala doesn't get controlled. And what happens later because of that is serious. But when there's lots of warmth and love around, the oxytocin system develops the right way. It gets stronger. And when that system is strong, your kid can calm themselves down better, connect with people better, and handle their emotions better. Not just as a kid but their whole life. Your baby watching you hug your partner is, on a biology level, watching the chemistry of love happen. And it's helping set up their own chemistry. But there's another layer most people don't even think about. Because it's not just what your baby learns from watching. It's what they're actually building inside their brain. Literally. And a study that tracked kids' brains over 10 years found it. Scientists followed kids from when they were babies all the way to age 10 or 11, and looked at their brains the whole time. They found something that stops every parent. Kids who felt safe and loved at 15 months old, who had a warm, loving bond with the person taking care of them, had bigger brains in important parts when they were 10 or 11. A whole decade later. These brain parts handle stuff like understanding people, feeling what they feel, and reading other people's emotions. Get that? What happened emotionally in the first year and a half left a real physical mark on the brain 10 years later. This is what John Bowlby was talking about when he came up with attachment theory. He said something radical, that the bond between a kid and their caregiver wasn't just about feelings. It was biological. It was about how they developed. It shaped who they became at the deepest level. Mary Ainsworth built on that work. She watched how different caregiving styles made kids bond in different ways. Kids who had warm, loving, responsive parents, who grew up watching their caregivers show love and pay attention, they did so much better. They explored more. They got over stress faster. They had better friendships. And decades of research after that showed these advantages stuck around into adulthood. Here's what this means in real life. The feeling in your home, how you treat your partner if the air feels warm or tense if you show love openly, is not separate from your kid's development. It's part of it. They're soaking it in. It's shaping them in ways you won't see until they're in their own relationships years from now. And this is where science gets into something that quietly changes how you think about parenting. Because it's not just about what happens when there's love. What happens when there isn't is something people don't usually talk about. Let's talk about what research shows happens when a baby grows up without watching warmth between the people who matter most. This isn't about being perfect. Stress happens. People fight. Nobody's asking for a perfect show. But research on what happens when homes are emotionally cold, where caregivers don't show love, where things feel tense or distant, is clear and hard to ignore. Kids who develop what's called insecure attachment, especially kids who shut down, which comes from parents ignoring emotions, have a specific problem. They don't cry or act upset when their caregiver leaves. They look fine. But their body isn't fine. Their heart rate and stress chemicals show they're stressed. They just learned not to show it because when they did, nobody answered. Research found that really messed up attachment from babyhood, the worst kind usually from scary or unpredictable parenting, predicts a bigger fear center in the adult brain. A bigger, overly reactive fear center is connected to constant stress, anxiety problems, and trouble managing emotions. The scared part of the brain grew bigger because it never learned to feel safe. Kids with attachment problems are more likely to have behavior issues like ADHD and conduct problems. Adults with insecure attachment have higher rates of messy relationships, trouble with emotions, and mental health issues. These aren't locked in. Growing up isn't that simple. But these are real risks that come straight from how the home felt in those early years. So when you ask, why does it matter if my baby watches us hug? It matters because your baby is watching everything. And what they watch is becoming their emotional nervous system. But here's what research also says, and this turns worry into something you can actually do something about. Because the thing that creates all of this isn't complicated. You don't have to be a perfect parent. You don't have to have a perfect relationship. It takes one simple thing. And once you get it, it changes how you see all the small moments you've been overlooking. Let's go back to mirror neurons and dig deeper. When Meltzoff studied how babies copy things, he figured out something that flipped everything people thought about development. Jean Piaget thought babies started out kind of alone, not able to really connect with or learn from people until later. Meltzoff blew that apart. Babies don't learn about relationships from being told. They learn from watching. And they learn so directly that what they see on the outside becomes what they feel on the inside. When your baby watches you hug your partner, their brain doesn't just take a picture. There's a whole simulation running. The parts of their brain that handle warmth and closeness and safety turn on, not because they're feeling something warm themselves but because they're watching. Over time, when this happens again and again, it builds what scientists call a relational prototype. It's like a template for what a relationship looks like, feels like, and acts like. A baby who grows up watching warm, physical affection builds a template that says, love is safe. Closeness is safe. People who care show it. A baby who grows up without it builds a different template. Not broken, but different. And that template shows up quietly or loudly in how they bond with friends in preschool, teachers at school, romantic partners when they're grown. Meltzoff made another observation that parents rarely hear. He found that the way we understand other people learned from watching in early childhood is where empathy comes from. Empathy doesn't just appear, he said. It grows from simpler things first. Those simpler things? Happening right now. Every time your baby watches you reach for your partner, pull them close, rest your head on theirs, empathy is getting built. Brick by brick. And this is where parents often feel something heavy. Not because they've messed up, but because they've been doing something amazing without knowing it. And they've also been missing chances they didn't realize were chances at all. Think about this past week at home. The mornings when you were rushed, stressed, barely looking at your partner before you left. The nights when you were so tired you just sat on opposite ends of the couch. The moments when you didn't reach for your partner's hand because it felt too small, not worth it. Your baby saw all of that. Now think about the mornings when you stopped and held each other for a moment. The nights when you sat close, touched your partner's shoulder as you walked past them. The easy, natural moments of warmth. Your baby saw all of that too. And here's what science tells us loud and clear. It's not big, dramatic moments that wire the brain. It's the small, regular, everyday moments. The warmth that just lives in your home like air. Research watching 7-month-old babies' brains found that caring, attentive parenting was directly connected to bigger brain responses to happy emotions in those babies. Caring parenting was literally rewiring how the baby brain processes good feelings. And what does caring parenting look like day to day? It's not hard. It's answering when your baby calls. It's making eye contact. It's letting them see you be warm with people around you. It's letting them see you hug. Because to a 7-month-old brain that's building its first real picture of what relationships are, that hug is saying, the people around me are kind to each other. Being close is good. I'm safe here. And a brain that feels safe is a brain that can learn. That can explore. That can grow. But there's one more piece. Maybe the most important thing nobody really talks about. It's about what your baby is actually building for their future. Not just emotionally but structurally inside their brain. And it starts with something researchers call the internal working model. Bowlby used a specific phrase that deserves way more attention. He called it the internal working model. This is the hidden blueprint every person builds in their earliest years about 3 things: who they are, who other people are, and what relationships do. It's built almost completely from what you see and experience before you even learn to really talk. And here's the thing about this blueprint: once it's there, it works mostly below your awareness. It shapes whether you think someone can be trusted. It shapes how you react when someone pulls away. It shapes whether being close feels safe or scary. It shapes how you parent decades later when you have your own kids. Kids who grow up with secure blueprints, in homes where they watched warmth and quick responses and affection between caregivers, carry that forward into almost everything. They tend to think people can be relied on. They tend to believe they deserve care. When relationships get hard, they can usually work through it without shutting down or exploding. Kids who grew up with anxious or distant blueprints carry that forward too. Sometimes spending years figuring out why closeness feels scary, or why they can't believe someone will stay. Neither path is permanent. Bowlby himself said these blueprints can be changed by big new experiences. They're not set in stone. But they are a starting point. A powerful one. And that starting point is being written right now. In your living room. At your kitchen table. In 2 seconds when you reach for your partner before bed. Your baby is taking notes. Here's what I want you to think about. You've been thinking about parenting mostly in terms of what you do to your baby. How you feed them. How you hold them. How you respond when they cry. How you play with them and talk to them and read to them. All of that matters so much. And none of that changes. But there's another whole curriculum happening that almost nobody talks about. It's not what you do to your baby. It's what you do in front of them. The relationship your baby watches most closely, the one that plays like background music in their life, is yours. You and your partner. And that background music is writing code in their brain that'll play for decades. The warmth between you. The care. The physical closeness. The moments where two regular, exhausted people in the middle of an ordinary, messy life still reach for each other. Your baby is watching a partnership. A real human bond. And they're building their understanding of what love is from watching it live. Not from a screen. Not from a book. From you. Live. Real. Unscripted. This isn't pressure to be perfect. Relationships are complicated. Life is exhausting. Fights happen and that's normal. Research actually shows kids learn a ton from watching their parents work through fights the right way, talking it out without being mean, without cruelty, without shutting each other out. Perfect isn't the goal. The goal is realness. Warmth. Just being loving to another person in front of the small person watching you to understand life. So what do you actually do? Tomorrow morning, when everything's moving fast and your brain's already 10 steps ahead, just stop. 4-5 seconds. Hold your partner close. Grab their hand. Put your hand on their back. Not for them. Not even for you. For the one watching. Because those 5 seconds send a message that your baby's brain receives and saves. A message that says, the world is warm. People who care about each other show it. This is who I am because this is what I've seen. Take this with you into your day differently from now on. When you reach for your partner's hand at the store without thinking, that's a lesson. When you're wiped out at the end of the day and you still say I love you out loud, that's a lesson. When your baby hears you genuinely laughing with your partner, that's a lesson. The brain your kid is going to carry into adulthood is being built right now. Piece by piece. Moment by moment. Observation by observation. The kind of connection they'll have, how much they can trust, how much they can be intimate with someone, how much they can love, is being shaped in these years that'll mostly feel like a blur. Bowlby spent his whole career proving one thing. The emotional bond formed in your kid's first years is not a soft, optional thing. It's the foundation of everything about being able to love and be loved. You're building that foundation right now. Not in the big moments. In the quiet ones. In the hug in the kitchen. In holding hands at dinner. In the warmth that just lives in your home like light. Your baby is watching. And what they see in you, in both of you, is becoming who they are.